Hello, this is Betamax80. I just wanted to do a very quick update to show you what I now consider my completed HP microserver renovation and, I don't know, ultimate souping up project. I thought you might like to see the results, and I'm quite happy to show them off, to be honest with you. Right, I'm going to do the tour now. So, first of all, to prove to you that this is the box I said it was. It is a repurposed server computer, so it has a locking front panel to it. I actually added the DVD writer. That didn't come as standard. It came with absolutely nothing in terms of optical media. The light on the front is quite clever, and I think normal PCs should have this more often. That actually tells you the health of the computer. So it's blue at the moment. I know the camera isn't really picking it up too well, but the colour actually changes to tell me if there's any problems with any part of the computer. So it goes one of about 5 different colours. Quite clever. It's pretty packed out inside these days. Now I've had my way with it. So it looks very dusty. Unfortunately, the air actually gets drawn in at the back of these, so the dust all settles at the front because it's behind the grill. It's quite annoying, actually. Anyway, as you can see, it's quite packed in here. I'm going to turn the camera sideways. We've got, first of all, a wireless card. I'm trying to show you here. There it is. You see the blue light. It has an antenna. That was very important because I knew it was going to be internal, and I wanted it to actually have the best possible chance of getting a signal. So there's the antenna. Behind that, I don't know if you can see at all, not really, but it's absolutely packed, let's just say. There's a new graphics card and a new sound card in there. The graphics card has actually been there for a while. I did some research when I first turned this into a desktop and bought a fairly cheap ATI Radeon HD 6450. This was down to various reviews, and I was just basically looking for a passive card. You see from here, now what's that? That's the chipset, I think. No, that's the power supply there. Tiny power supply. It's only 150 watts, so a lot of the challenge with this computer was actually me making sure that I didn't overstretch the power supply, because it's very small, but it also makes the whole computer very power efficient. I didn't want to do anything to jeopardise that, so everything was bought very carefully. There's an ATI Radeon HD 6450 in there, and then the sound card I showed you, which I have to say is absolutely amazing. You can just see the card jutting out right by these drive bays here. That's the Tech X5 based card that I was talking to you about, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's completely as I hoped it would be, so I'm very pleased with that, and I think that's actually going to see use in computers for quite some time, actually, because you literally cannot get other cards that are based on such a good chip and fit within such a small space. So I think this is probably going to be used by me again and again and again. Just to show briefly, again, this is its server credentials. There's space for 4 hard disk drives. It says they can't be hot swapped, but I've actually done something to do with the system software that means that they can be. You can't take out the drive that actually has the operating system on it, which is that one now, which is why I'm pointing to it, but all of the others you can actually just stop in Windows, remove and change if you wanted to. Right now I haven't got them all full, partly because hard disks are still very expensive, even spinning ones. I have, however, upgraded the system drive to what's called a hybrid drive, so it's still a hard disk, so it has a large capacity. In this case, it's a Seagate with 1 terabyte, but it's also got an 8 gigabyte solid state drive, and I chose this because Windows XP can't cope with solid state drives due to the way it actually, or the way that these drives actually allocate their data. Basically, it wears out the drive due to read and writes in the same place all of the time. So the best combination is what's called a hybrid drive, because it deals with the solid state stuff by itself. Windows doesn't have to know anything about it. The drive actually moves things from the solid state drive to the spinning drive, the 1 terabyte drive, all in firmware, so it's all completely transparent to the operating system, which is why I went for it. I've still got the original included drive, 250GB Seagate, which was the included drive, as my second hard disk, and I'm now using that for backups and device software, that kind of thing. So that's that. So let's move on to the peripherals. Okay, I've had a bit of trouble in terms of peripherals because I've found that wireless based devices just are not liked by the USB system on this computer. I think it's to do with the fact that it's got 6 USB ports. Here's 4 on the front. There we are, all full. And there's 2 more on the back, but they're actually USB hubs, so you can't actually get to the main USB port. The only actual direct USB port is the one inside the computer, which is why the wireless dongle is connected into that one, because I've had so much trouble with wireless and these front and rear USB ports. So an important part of this computer, believe it or not, and no, it's not just for games, but you know what, it is good for games as well, is my Xbox 360 controller. It is a wired one, there's all that wire down there, but it actually works as a media remote as well, so I can actually change tracks, or I can move a DVD forwards and backwards with this controller as well. And it is also very good for the kind of era of games that this computer can actually cope with, which is the sort of 2007 to 2010 era, which happens to be the era of the Xbox 360. This is a specific Xbox 360 controller for Windows. This little bit of magic here makes it work with Windows rather than being an actual Xbox 360 controller. But it is an actual Xbox 360 controller, and all of the rumble features do work. So a lot of the games that I have do actually work with this controller, which is a bonus, but it's also for media control. I actually found it to be the best solution that I could for media control, considering that nothing wireless works. I did actually try a Microsoft Media Center receiver and remote control, but the computer just didn't recognize the device at all. So I've gone back to something trustworthy, which is a wired remote control, or gamepad, if you like. Oh, just to show you as well, was a real server. Used to be. That's a Windows Server 2012 product key. Anyway, nice and blurry, so you can't see that. This monitor is not perfect. It actually has a crack on one side, and it's a Dell monitor. It's just about okay, because it actually just handles high definition for video playback, but it's far from ideal, to be honest with you. Moving down to the keyboard. This is a carefully researched device. It looks absolutely crazy, I know. It's actually a gaming keyboard. It's called Logitech G510S. And one of the major features of this for me was, believe it or not, again, dual purpose, like the gamepad. Yeah, you'd think, okay, you don't do any games, or you're just a mad gamer. Actually, I have media and macro controls in Windows tied to these, so I can actually perform Word and Excel macros with these, thanks to someone else's script, which I've downloaded and made use of. So it's not just a gaming keyboard, actually. The coolest 2 parts of this are the media controls. That's a volume controller, that real, which is quite cool. Mute, media controls. That's for the backlight. I quite like the backlight, to be honest. And this screen, which this camera probably won't focus on, there we are. This screen actually plays all kinds of things. It shows all sorts of information. I can even get, when it behaves, news headlines on here, which is quite cool. There we go. And if I press on the expand button, it actually brings up the web page with the full story on it. That's really quite cool. So I get headlines. I can scroll through the headlines. So there are uses to it. It's not just a gimmick. Okay, let's move on from the keyboard to the mouse. Now, it's not an HP, it's not a Logitech, it's none of that. It's all bits from other providers, I know, but this mouse is very special to me. This is a scroll point mouse. I don't know if you've ever used a ThinkPad laptop specifically, where you have the little device in the middle of the keyboard where you just do that with it rather than actually have to move around the trackpad. This mouse actually has the same thing. Let's see. If I'm in a web page, for example, I can move the mouse. Yeah, music's good. And the page moves without me having to use it. There we go. Really wants to play media. It's quite cool. You've got side to side, you've got up and down, and you don't have to do loads of that, which is bad for your fingers anyway. And it's got 3 buttons. It's got an extra button at the front. I really like it. I've actually got spares of these because they stopped making these a while ago, and they're a little vestige of old IBM technology. I really enjoy it. Now we move on to the other mouse. Yes, they're both plugged in. This is my special iFeel mouse for Windows XP. I just wonder if I can actually give you an example of doing something with it. It's going to enable iFeel. It's got some software here. Now then, I'm going to bring up its control panel. I think that's the best thing to show you what it does. There are you. I hate personalised menus. I should have turned that off. I really should. Right. Bear with me. It's not always the fastest, but that's alright. It's the genuine article. Here it comes. There we are. So a good example. Listen to this. Hear that? That's the mouse actually shuddering when I press that play button. And that's why that mouse is so cool. There's certain games, more than anything, I will admit it's mainly for games, but games that were written before the gamepad are generally compatible with the cool mouse, and I really enjoy that mouse because it's a rare piece of technology. It's long forgotten, but it's cool. Right, on to the beast of the speakers. There is another one. It's there. It's behind the computer. Very cool. They're extremely loud, to be honest with you. And they weren't much at all. They're about £35, and they're absolutely incredible. I knew there would be as soon as I saw such a large wood enclosure for a satellite speaker. Normally PC speakers have tiny little round enclosures or some little plastic thing. This is a proper solid wood enclosure, as you can see. It's absolutely phenomenal, and that's a subwoofer. Supposedly not the most powerful, but the sound is very rounded, and that's the important thing, because the sound from the X-Fi sound card is also very rounded. I know X-Fi sound cards and how they sound. It's absolutely fab. It's a perfect match. And here, I think I showed you before, well there's the graphics cable, it's a DVI cable, solid. And that's the audio outputs. I think I showed you that. The potential 7.1 audio outputs is an absolutely crazy configuration. I love it. It's absolutely nuts. All coming from that single breakout pod to those 7 outputs. As you can see, I've upgraded the channel that goes to the speakers. That's again after reading some reviews online, and I diagnosed the issue that these people were having to the included 3.5mm to phono cable that came in the box with the speakers, because it looked very, very poor, to be honest with you. This only cost me £2.74, I think it was, from Amazon, but look at that. That's a proper piece of audio gear in comparison, and I think it was well worth £2.74. So there we go. That's the system. I'm very proud of it. I don't think I can possibly add any more. I might be able to add another hard disk, but that might be pushing the output of the power supply, to be honest with you. I'm amazed how capable it is. As you can see, it's running Windows XP now because of a lot of compatibility reasons. The sound card works best under Windows XP. So does the vibrating mouse. It's all because of Windows XP having direct access to the hardware of the computer, whereas everything from Windows Vista upwards had what was called a HAL layer, which is a hardware abstraction layer, which meant that Windows translated any calls direct to the hardware. Basically, things were never the same, to be honest with you. Everything works. The sound card works. The mouse doesn't work apart from as a normal mouse. None of the feedback features work on that Logitech mouse, but everything does work up to Windows 8.1 on this computer. I did try Windows 10, but I think that the drivers basically for the hardware are getting a little bit long in the tooth for Windows 10. There are some vague attempts by the hardware manufacturers to produce some sort of Windows 10 driver, but it's very preliminary. It's not very finished or polished. So I've actually made a compromise, and I have a Windows 8.1 license on here, and Windows 8.1 runs extremely well on this computer, which makes sense because this computer, again, remembering it was a server, HP supported Windows Server 2003, which you can translate as to being Windows XP, but for servers, up to Windows 2012 R2 Release 2, which, funnily enough, translates into Windows 8.1. So it makes a lot of sense, really. There are limits to this computer, partly the amount of memory that you can put in here, partly the fact that the processor is actually soldered onto the motherboard, so you won't be doing any amazing processor upgrades. It's a 2.2 gigahertz, basically a laptop processor. That's what it is. So anything post 2011 probably will be horrible on here, to be honest with you, in terms of productivity software or anything else. Office 2016 does run if you give it long enough to start up, but I really enjoy this computer just because I've managed to actually get so much out of it and turn it into such a beast for what it initially was designed for. Everything in here is low profile. Everything in here involved some research. Even the memory has to be specifically the right memory to make it 8 gigabytes. It only came with 2. That's made a huge difference. But it's a great little box. It's very quiet. It comes with a single fan on the back that provides the airflow for everything, hence why all the dust is at the front of the computer. And I'm really proud of my achievement actually in turning this into a desktop. I'm actually in the midst of trying to document it. I have got some rather more pressing issues. Let's not go into that in terms of what I need to document, but yeah, I am trying to create a documentation project for this as well. I know I've actually found what I think is probably nirvana for this computer as a desktop. Okay, hope you enjoyed the update. Speak to you soon. Bye.